G'day and welcome to the Farms Advice podcast with your host, Jack Creswell. Whether you farm it, service it, or just love it, this podcast is for you. We'll bring you the techniques and technologies you can implement into your day straight from the leaders and innovators themselves. Spread the Farms Advice so that we can reach more farmers right across Australia. Follow us on all of your socials at Farms Advice and let's get into this episode. It is well known opportunities come at the harshest of times, and throughout that recent drought, we had a lot of the businesses within rural and remote areas were actually born off the back of offsetting what we did on farm, property, station, whatever you call it, and especially out west, Western New South Wales, and that was very familiar for Jason and his family. On this episode, we'll touch into why they did it, when it happened, and what spurred them along to take the leap and create a clothing brand made for those on the land. I think it's a pretty brave step out there, but also it's so good to see what the opportunity is in a sort of a downtime where you're sort of more stressed about your livestock and seeing what sort of opportunities are out there. It's amazing that they've bounced back off the back of that, and they're now supporting the podcast, clothing us from head to toe pretty well. And we're really keen to work with them in 2023 and see what it's all about. So listen to this episode and make sure you get over to stockmanandco.com and see what they're all about. Let's get into this episode for the 2023. Well, welcome to the Farms Advice podcast today. We've very special episode this one with a mate that's supporting the podcast, but also our very first live podcast, live for us anyway. We're face to face looking at each other here. Great to have you on the podcast today, Jason.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jack.
Mate, your story I'd never really found out until you got in touch with me about where you've come from, but we've got pretty similar stories the way it goes. But do you want to give us a bit of a outlook or background to who Jason is, his family, and where you've come from?
Yeah, sure. So originally we were based out near Tibooburra in the far northwestern New South Wales. We had a cattle station out there, which was in the family for about 3 or 4 generations, and I suppose we moved into Dubbo, a little bit closer to civilization, I suppose, about 8 years ago now, I suppose. Yeah.
What do you think, like, the difference from going to Tibooburra to near Dunedoo-ish?
Yeah, it's a massive difference, obviously, in terms of farming and in terms of being able to go to town, pick things up. It's just a massive difference.
There's a few E's in it, but like farming-wise, more intensive. Like we found that as a family farm, we'll Kenya to Dubbo. More intensive sort of farming, you've got to be on top of it. We didn't really have worms for our sheep out there. Yeah. And now we've just, like, the workload is there a lot more.
Yeah, 100%. We're handling our stock here way more than we ever would have out there. You know, the cattle out there would come in once a year, really, for marking, for calf marking and stuff, and they'd go back to their paddock, which, you know, was around 30,000 acres. Yeah. Whereas here you're dealing with paddocks around, I don't know, maybe
20-30 hectares.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. So they come in more often. They need their vet checks more often. Yep. There's more disease. There's more everything. Worms, as you said, everything.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely a different style, and great to see that you've continued through with the family down here. What was the operations like from Tibooburra? Who was working in the operations, and then has it changed much coming down here?
Yeah. I suppose it's still similar. We only ever really had a manager out there too. Yep. So a manager, he would be there pretty much 24/7 with whether he had a family or not. Yep. And he'd keep an eye on everything, and then we'd be sort of. It was obviously when I was a bit younger, so it was when I was at school. I went to school in Sydney, so in school holidays I'd be out there pretty much every school holidays, and the old man, he was to and from a fair bit too. He was in and out, and so was Mum. So
making it work like most farmers out there.
Yep, exactly,
mate. But tell me a bit about Stockman N Co, how that came about, why it came about, and who it's for.
Yeah, so basically we created Stockman N Co. I think it was probably about 3 years ago. It'd be 2.5 years ago now.
2020? Does that make
2020, yeah. So in February 2020, I sort of sat down in the middle of the drought with the family, and we sort of came up with a bit of a plan to sort of come up with an off-farm income, I suppose. And, you know, mum and dad doing a bit tough, so I thought I'll try and come up with something that'll get mum a little bit more involved, and something that she might be interested in. So, we sort of came up with Stockman N Co.
Was it the first sort of channel that you went with, like branding, clothing sort of channel, or did you have a look at elsewhere?
It probably was the first sort of channel that I looked at. It was the first sort of thing that I thought about, that I was semi-interested in doing, and I thought that there was... I figured at that point there was a slight hole in the industry and some stuff that I wanted to implement and change. And
Well, I think your timing for that was pretty immaculate, of coming into COVID and people are looking to support Australian sort of brands and how that works. What sort of challenges or difficulties did you have learning, probably coming from the land and doing this very different to like producing food and everything? You've got to sort of be a brand, grow that brand. How did you go all about it?
Yeah, look, it was very different, coming from a farming sort of background and not having any business skills, I suppose. A lot of things was a lot of trial and error, I suppose, is really what it was. It was trial and error. It uses social media, obviously, to promote it, which I had a little bit of an idea about. You know, then I sort of watched a few other businesses and how other people did things, and used what they sort of implemented, and then I sort of implemented in my way, I guess. Obviously, having COVID at that time was, I think, beneficial to do, to start a small business that's an online business. It was a beneficial time to do it. It was just luck in a way that it sort of it came up across as it did.
Did you launch straight away online, or did you have your collective of mates that supported you initially, and then you're like, hang on, I've got something here and it's a good brand name? And
I suppose it took me probably 6 to 7 months to launch, so it wasn't sort of straight off. It was about 6 to 7 months before I launched. I had a fair few mates that all sort of got really around it. They were very interested, and all wore the gear in the beginning, and it just sort of went from there, really.
Yeah, I think like those original people, the people that supported the podcast, you've come on as one of them as well now, and how like those original people can really grow your own community.
Yeah.
How have you gone about growing your community, expanding it, and actually like the brand of Stockman N Co is really great, but it's probably having a bit of impact for people on the land as well, and for your family. I love the story of where it's gone, where it's come from, and where it's going. You're probably most interested in. How have you gone about growing that community?
At this stage, it was all generally on social media in the beginning. There was no other choice with COVID and the lockdowns and whatnot. But then, since then, we've sort of been trying to get to as many sort of real shows and support rodeos and whatnot, and support people in the community as well as best we can. You know, whether it be sponsoring and giving some gear away. We've basically been giving some money away to the Flying Doctor as well, who are a big part of our life out west. As per each order, we've sort of been donating $1 per order to the RFDS. We're basically doing that. It sort of gets sent to them, I think maybe twice a year. We sort of just save it all up and then send them a check, I suppose, twice a year, which is good. It's good to be able to actually give back to them after they helped us. We had a fair few major accidents through the family out west.
This is out in Tibooburra?
Yeah, correct.
Out there, like much needed, isn't it? RFDS.
Yeah, I mean, even with the RFDS, in some emergency situations, it would still take anywhere from 5 to 6 hours to get to a hospital, which is crazy. A crazy amount of time to be.
That's if you're probably not out in the paddock without your phone or something, and people have got to find you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's a great way. Actually, people probably wouldn't know. I tried to start a clothing company in 2017, but I went overseas, and Mum was my operation manager. And I actually contacted RFDS before I sort of had a sale through the door, and they probably gave some good advice of maybe just wait until you're a little bit bigger and start supporting us then. But off the back of you've grown quite quickly, and it's good to see the RFDS coming through on that.
Yeah. I mean, we just basically send them the money. We don't have any specific deal with them. It's just what we wanted to do for them is just send them some money to help them as they helped us. And they were there for us when we needed it. So that's the least that we could do for them, I suppose. Yeah.
Well, I think for a lot of the listeners up in Queensland, WA, and there's a couple speckled in NT, they well know about the RFDS and how it's helping the family farm as well. But for Stockman N Co, where to next, and like what are your plans with it to work alongside the family farm how's that going to pan out for you?
Look, we're probably just trying to expand the business as best we can.
Yep.
I'd like to sort of take someone on to give me a hand with the workload a little bit, which would be good. I've obviously got mum helping me out 24/7 too.
You're on the mums.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Wouldn't be where I am without her help.
Yep.
That's for sure. But yeah, no, I like to expand the business and get to as many rural shows and rodeos and everything, as many events as I possibly can, which would be good. Meet as many people as I can, and just expand and see how it all goes.
Through consistency, just like the podcast as well. So for yourself, when this comes out, what's the next sort of event you're going to? Heading up to Agquip?
Yeah, so the next event's actually this coming week. Actually, I doubt this won't be aired by then, will it?
Yeah, so what's the...
So Mudgee.
You're going to Mudgee Field Days,
I'll start again, yeah. So the first event that's coming up next will be the Mudgee Field Days. That's on the Friday and Saturday of next week. And then the next after that will be Agquip and Henty. We'll be down at Henty as well.
Yeah, right. I haven't been down to Henty. Been pretty keen to get... When's it on?
It is mid-September.
September?
Top of my head, yeah. Mid-September.
Yeah, right. I have to get down there one day.
Yeah.
Maybe even this year, we'll see.
Yeah.
But... Talking, like, going back into your farm, how's the farm operation work here outside of Stockman N Co? Like, what are you doing with yourself, and, like, what sheep, what cattle do you have, and how are you sort of running it?
Yeah, well, at the moment we've just got mainly sheep and cattle, really, at this stage. We're not too deep into cropping at the moment. It's something a little bit foreign to us still. From where we came from, it was never a thing that was necessary, and it was never possible, the rainfall. So yeah, we're just sort of focusing on our Angus and our crossbreds at the moment. Yeah, which has been good. Yeah.
So are you cattle man or sheep man?
Oh, personally, I'm a cattle man. Personally,
sheep. For myself. But how's your operation work, and like how are you running it with your family here? Yeah. You're just running commercial lots. Yeah,
basically. Yeah, we just basically breed and then sell on through auctions and whatnot. Yeah, that's really it. Yeah, nothing too special.
And you're running merinos. We're actually looking at the merinos now around the house paddock. How are they going for you in the wool market currently?
Yeah, I think it's dipped a little bit.
Yeah.
It's dipped in the recent weeks. So same with the lamb prices and everything. It all seems to have dipped off a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's been good. Anything's been good since the drought. The prices have all gone up when you think about it since then. Yeah, so it couldn't be any worse.
Yeah. Now, it's still like pretty good, isn't it, considering the drought? I think we sold goats as well, and I think they beat our weathers out the other day. And also, like, to a restocker. I've never heard of a goat restocker, which is pretty weird sort of times. Everyone's sort of moving into the ways where money's going, but I think goats have some bit of consistency as well.
Definitely.
But probably, like, touching on cropping and everything, I looked back into our shed the other day, and when we were at Kenya, we probably had 4 bikes and a quad or something. Yep. But now we've got all the gear and no idea. We've got headers, trucks, planting equipment and everything. Fert spreader. How'd you go with that adjustment? And you're still adjusting, obviously. It doesn't. Yeah. It's not overnight within agriculture and farming. How did you go? Like your family.
Yeah, I mean we're still picking up new bits and pieces in secondhand sales to sort of whether it be seeders and stuff like that. We've just bought a new. Well, it's not new. It's a 1980 bloody seeder. So it's
new for you.
It's new for us, but not new for anyone else. Yeah. And it's been different, very different. Using the tractor a lot more than we ever would have out there. The only thing we used the tractor out there for was moving a couple of hay bales around, or moving some troughs, or
when you didn't want to do it in the drought, probably too.
Sorry.
When you didn't want to move the hay bales around in the drought.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly. So it was dry out there all the time. So we sort of used the tractor for a lot of things like that. Yeah.
And like a few common buzzwords around data and ag tech. Are you using anything on farm to help you utilise your time a bit better?
In terms of
software or like FarmBot or something like that.
At this stage, we're not. At this stage, it's still sort of running the old school method and Dad sort of keeping an eye on everything. Pretty much. We haven't sort of implemented any sort of technological systems at this stage.
No, like apps for livestock management or anything running off the top of your head in the books?
No, I have had a little bit of a look through the App Store and sort of done a little bit of research in terms of what can be implemented, but I haven't had the sort of time to get into it.
Well, alongside running Stockman N Co, there's a fair bit going on your plate. Especially down here in Dunedoo, a bit intensive. I think it's the same. It plays out for a lot of farmers. What your story is, people don't have the time, but if you do get that time, it's good to have a look in there, and
Yeah.
you'd probably be able to save the time and like the outside value of what AgTech's doing for Australian farms anyway.
Yeah, for sure. It's something that we will be looking into in the near future, I'd suggest, yeah.
Yep, so for anyone looking to get in touch with Stockman N Co, how can we do so?
You can jump onto our Instagram or our Facebook page, send us a message or follow us. They'll see all the new updates of new clothing and new gear that's coming out in the coming months. That's probably the best way, I suppose, yeah. I mean, we've got emails and stuff too, so you can jump onto our website, www.stockmanandco.com, and all the links are there. Beautiful.
So before we leave, one piece of farms advice that you'd like to leave our listeners with before we go?
Ooh, I have to think about that one.
Maybe like direct it towards value adding for their farm, whether it's another clothing brand or even if it's producing food, beef jerky or something like that. How did you get around the challenge of that hump of starting something for your family? How did you get it started? Kick it in the boot, kick it up the arse sort of thing for the website. Did you go straight into a website for yourself?
Yeah, basically that was probably one of the first things, apart from Instagram and social media. I think the social media was the real kickstarter of the whole thing. It's the best way to get any of your information and get any of your stuff out there, I suppose. Really.
And also, how did you come up with the name Stockman N Co?
That's a good question. Also, I was just happened to be flicking through the internet. I was thinking about it at the time, trying to come up with a name and a bit of a business, and just came across Stockman and just I don't know, just popped up into the head, and I thought, that'll do.
Yeah, I think it's one thing, you just got to go with it, fly with it, and see how it goes. I think everyone in the initial stages thinks it's a shit name or something, but after a few years, people get to know it and get assimilated with it as well.
Exactly.
It's good.
Exactly, yeah. No, that's right.
Cool. Jason, mate, thanks for coming on the podcast. Nice quick one today. Yep. Check out his clothing brand at stockmanandco.com.au.
Yep.
Great stuff. They're supporting the podcast here, and most of my shirts that you see when I'm out in the paddock or in the studio is Stockman N Co. We love the brand and also his story, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
It's peak summer, so if you're looking for some work shirts, work shorts, or some bloody good accessories, make sure you head across to stockmanandco.com because they're actually supporting the podcast and clothing us out here on farm as well. So use the discount code that they've used for Farms Advice listeners, and that's Farms Advice 10. Make sure you head over to Stockman N Co now. This Farms Advice episode does not stop here. Come and join the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok, and even join our Facebook group. Go to farmsadvice.com.au for more on this episode and spread the hashtag FarmsAdvice to your mates. If you can leave a review on Apple or Spotify, that will let other farmers find us too. But until then, see you next Tuesday. In the spirit of reconciliation, the Farms Advice podcast acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people today.